Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the program. It is Friday, August 21st, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Shin Se-min. And before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. Doctors on strike again, this time junior doctors, even while South Korea continues to add triple-digit COVID-19 cases every day for the past week. This as talks between the medical community and the government break down on whether to up admission quotas at med schools. U.S. pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson says it'll begin a late-stage COVID-19 vaccine trial in September with up to 60,000 people, the largest yet. South Korea will also ramp up its race on vaccine development, promising full support for local biofirms. China's top diplomat is heading to Busan for talks with South Korean officials on North Korea, the coronavirus, and a long-anticipated visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping. The first face-to-face diplomacy between the two sides in months comes as tensions heat up between U.S. and China. Medical interns and residents are going on strike for an indefinite period amid the surging number of COVID-19 cases here in South Korea. They are protesting the government's new medical workforce program, which includes increasing the number of students admitted to medical schools. In response, major university hospitals have reduced the number of appointments, and the government has vowed to respond in accordance with the law, hinting at a strong response. And today's strike begins with interns and fourth-year residents, followed by third-year residents on Saturday and first to second-year residents on Sunday. And the Korean Intern Residents Association said the young doctors are even willing to resign if the government does not scrap its current plans. South Korea's prime minister called on the nation again to be vigilant in helping to contain the uptick in recent COVID-19 cases, spreading fast across the greater Seoul region. And most importantly, the prime minister Chung Se-kyun said the focus is on getting the participants of last weekend's demonstrations checked ASAP. Listen to this.
Right now, the top priority is sorting out the confirmed patients through diagnostic checks on members of the church who attended a political demonstration last week. The government will work with telecom companies to make sure all participants get tested.
He said the government will ensure personal information is protected during that process and said that anyone spreading fake news that the government will be distributing private information will be held responsible. South Korea on Thursday recorded a triple-digit increase in COVID-19 cases for the seventh straight day, and that pushed up the total number of new cases over the past week to over 1,500. And with most of the cases being concentrated in the capital region, the Seoul city government has banned rallies of 10 or more people across the region. The South Korean government has pledged to spare no efforts to support for the country's pharmaceutical companies so they can develop effective treatments and vaccines against COVID-19. Our Kim Yo-jong tells us more.
South Korean Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun on Thursday sat down with medical and pharmaceutical experts to discuss policy directions for developing and securing therapeutics and vaccines against COVID-19. The 15th round of such talks was attended by representatives of the country's vaccine developers, Centrion, SK Bioscience, and Genexin. Chung vowed the government's full support for research and development.
The government will fully support the vaccine development and securing vaccines from overseas.
The pharmaceutical companies pledged to exert full efforts to enable swift development. Sweltering chairman Seo Jung-jin said the company aims to have its antibody-based treatment in full development within the first half of next year at the latest, and asked for government support to enable swift clinical trials. SK Bioscience chief An Jae-yong also said his company will roll out a vaccine as soon as possible. On Thursday, health officials announced new progress regarding the country's plasma therapy.
As of August 20th, the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety has approved GC Pharma's clinical trial for plasma therapy, and it will be tested on COVID-19 patients at 6 hospitals.
So far, clinical trials for 14 COVID-19 treatments and 2 vaccines are underway in South Korea. Kim Yo-jong, Arirang News.
Johnson & Johnson plans to begin what would be the largest late-stage trial testing for a potential COVID-19 vaccine in September. According to the U.S. pharmaceutical company on Thursday, the Phase 3 trial will enroll up to 60,000 healthy people over 18 years old across nearly 180 locations in the United States as well as other countries. Participants will be randomly selected to receive a dose of the potential vaccine or a placebo, which will determine whether the vaccine is both safe and effective. The company added that the participants will be followed by researchers for more than 2 years, and Johnson & Johnson expects possible vaccine batches for potential emergency use to be available in early next year. Shifting focus, and China's top diplomat is due in South Korea's southern port city of Busan in the next coming hours for talks with South Korean officials. The meeting between Seoul's top national security advisor Seo Hoon and China's state counselor Yang Jiechi will include talks on North Korea cooperation on COVID-19 and a potential trip to South Korea by Chinese leader Xi Jinping. The leaders of both South Korea and China had agreed that President Xi would visit Seoul sometime early this year, but that was postponed indefinitely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And with this meeting between the two neighbors also coming amid escalating tensions between Washington and Beijing, their closed-door talks may even lead to diplomatic plans for Seoul going forward. Yang's two-day visit is his first to South Korea in more than 2 years. South Korea's intelligence agency is reporting that North Korea's leader has delegated part of his governing authority to top aides, mostly to his younger sister, Kim Yo-jong, to break away from stress. And the nation's intelligence agency, however, denied any health problems of its leader, Kim Jong-un. Our Kim Mo-jong with more.
South Korea's National Intelligence Service says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has entrusted a significant amount of his power to his sister Kim Yo-jong, making her practically second in charge. The agency was briefing South Korean lawmakers Thursday at the National Assembly behind closed doors. After the briefing, lawmaker Ha Tae-kyung with the main opposition United Future Party spoke to reporters. According to Ha, the NIS said that while Kim Jong-un hasn't officially made his sister his successor, he practically made her manager of the regime's diplomacy. As for others in the leadership, North Korea's economy is being overseen by the vice chairman of the ruling Workers' Party Park Bong-ju and by Prime Minister Kim Deok-hun. In charge of military affairs is the party's military department director Choi Bu-il. As for the development of strategic weapons, Kim has assigned the party's director of missile and nuclear weapons development, Lee Byung-chul. The South Korean lawmaker explained that Kim Jong-un has given these officials managerial roles, but that ultimate power still belongs to Kim. As for why Kim is delegating power, the lawmaker quoted the NIS as saying that Kim Jong-un probably wants to reduce the stress, having ruled the regime for 9 years now. Ha said Kim probably also wants others to share responsibility in case his policies fail. Regarding the COVID-19 situation, it's apparently caused foreign exchange shortages in the regime, judging by the decision to downsize major construction plans and cutbacks at major agencies. That's according to another lawmaker, Kim Byung-gi from the ruling Democratic Party, who was also briefed by the NIS. Kim said the recent heavy rainfall on the Korean peninsula also dealt the north a major blow, with severe damage done in the provinces of Hwanghae-do and Gangwon-do. The damage to farmland is believed to be even worse than 2016, when the regime saw its worst flood damage on record. Kim Mo-jong, Arirang News.
A senior U.S. government official says both Seoul and Washington are engaging in continuous conversations to reach a mutually acceptable agreement on defense cost sharing, adding that the issue is about sharing the burden of securing the Korean peninsula rather than just the money. Assistant Secretary of State Clark Cooper said during a teleconference on Thursday that Washington has shown, quote, significant flexibility in its talks with South Korea on the sharing of cost of maintaining U.S. forces Korea. He also stressed that it's a matter of shared interest for the allies. Russian President Vladimir Putin's most prominent opponent, Alexei Navalny, is in a coma after drinking a cup of tea his allies suspect was poisoned. Our Kim Jae-hee tells us more.
Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has fallen unconscious after suffering from suspected poisoning. The 44-year-old anti-corruption campaigner fell ill on a return flight to Moscow after drinking tea at an airport cafe. His allies believe that tea was laced with poison. The plane made an emergency landing at Omsk in Siberia, where he was taken to an intensive care unit. His press secretary said Navalny is in coma, connected to a ventilator, and his condition remains serious. She added he needs to be transferred to another hospital for treatment.
Navalny's family and doctors decided to transfer him to another clinic. It needs to be done because the hospital in Omsk does not have the sufficient equipment to carry out the necessary tests and procedures.
The incident has thrown previous suspected poisonings of the Kremlin's foes into the spotlight. One former Russian spy who became a double agent for Britain was left critically ill after being poisoned by a nerve agent in 2018, and a Russian defector died in 2006 after drinking green tea that was laced with radioactive polonium. The Kremlin has repeatedly denied involvement in these and other incidents. Western leaders responded to the news with concern, with France and Germany both expressing support for the Russian opposition leader.
Full light will have to be shed on the circumstances which have led to this situation, and we'll be extremely vigilant on the follow-up and investigations that will be carried out.
And if that is what is desired, then what applies to France also applies to Germany. That obviously Germany will let him have all the medical help that is needed also in German hospitals.
A Kremlin spokesperson said the Kremlin was aware of media reports about Navalny's hospitalization and said whether Navalny was poisoned or not should be confirmed by laboratory tests. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
K-pop sensation BTS will be releasing their first ever all-English language single titled The Dynamite in the next coming hours. The music video for the track is scheduled to hit YouTube and other video platforms at 1 p.m. Korea time on this Friday. And that's midnight on the East Coast for the U.S. It's their first all-English single, and that alone has been enough to whip their global fan base into a frenzy. And BTS plans to unveil their new album later this year, but they decided to give their fans a fat taster of what's to come with Dynamite, hoping its cheerful tone will lift people's spirits during this time of pandemic.
Good morning. The weather will vary today depending on where you are. It's raining heavily in parts of Gyeonggi-do province right now. We are seeing 20 millimeters an hour with heavy rain advisory in place in Paju and Yeoncheon. So do expect to see 20 to 60 millimeters of rain through tomorrow morning, while the capital and Gangwon-do province will see 5 to 40 millimeters. So don't forget your umbrella. So the heat will take a break in the upper regions thanks to the rain, while southern parts of the country will continue to be gripped by sweltering heat, hovering at 35 degrees Celsius under blazing hot sunshine. Daegu will get up to 36 degrees, Gwangju topping out at 34 degrees this afternoon, Seoul and Chuncheon will top out at 29 degrees. Sunday marks Choseol, the second autumn season term out of 6. But the summer heat is likely to stick with us for the next few days with rain in store early next week in the capital region. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that does it for us at this hour on Arirang News. But we will be back with more of today's headlines coming up at noon Korea time, so stay close. Thanks for watching and goodbye.
Cycling is gaining popularity amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Traveling by bike can reduce the risk of catching the disease compared to using crowded subways and buses. As more people are spending time outside, the demand for bikes is skyrocketing. The Financial Times has even reported on worldwide bike shortages due to the increased demand. Enjoy a relaxing